The first human ship arrived at the edge of the alien empire in silence. It was small compared to the massive alien structures that floated like dark moons in space. For many cycles, the empire had watched humans from afar. They were curious, but cautious. Humans were new to the galaxy, and already known for surviving wars that should have erased them. Still, no one expected a human to be sent alone to the world of the alien Queen. J stood inside the ship, calm but alert. He was not young, but not old either. His dark hair was cut short, and his eyes held the look of someone who had seen loss and lived through it. He had once been a soldier on Earth. Now he was an envoy, chosen not for power, but for patience. Humanity believed patience was its greatest strength. The alien world below was called Asha. It was a place of silver towers and wide oceans that reflected the stars. At its center rose the royal spire, where the queen ruled. Every species in the empire feared her. She was known as Era, the untouchable queen. No one dared to stand close to her. No one dared to make physical contact. It was said that those who did would lose their rank or their life. When Jay stepped out of his ship, alien guards surrounded him. They were tall and thin, with pale skin and glowing eyes. Their weapons hummed softly, ready to strike. Jay did not move. He lowered his hands and waited. The guards studied him, confused by his calm. Humans were supposed to be emotional and weak. This one did not match the stories. He was escorted through long halls made of smooth stone. The air was cool and quiet. Servants and officials moved away as he passed, as if his presence was dangerous. Whispers followed him. A human had come to the queen. Some believed it was an insult. Others believed it was a test. Inside the grand chamber, Era waited on her throne. The throne was not high, but it stood alone, far from everyone else. The space around it was empty by law. Era sat straight, her posture perfect. Her skin shimmered faintly, and her eyes were sharp and distant. She looked more like a symbol than a living being. Jay was told to stop far from her. He obeyed. He bowed, not too deep, not too shallow. He showed respect without fear. This small detail did not go unnoticed. The meeting began with formal words spoken by translators. Jay spoke of peace, trade, and shared knowledge. He spoke slowly, using simple words. He did not raise his voice. Era listened without reaction. Her expression did not change. Many before him had failed to even hold her attention. As the talks continued, a sudden sound cut through the chamber. A sharp crack echoed from above. In the same moment, Jay felt something wrong. Years of battle had trained his body to react before his mind. A section of the ceiling began to fall. It was not an accident. A hidden device had been planted, meant to kill the queen and blame the human. The guards froze, unsure how to act. No one was allowed near Era. No one moved. Jay moved. He ran forward without thinking. The distance that others feared meant nothing to him. He reached the throne just as the heavy structure collapsed. He wrapped his arms around Era and pulled her away. The stone struck the floor where she had been sitting, sending dust into the air. The chamber fell into chaos. Guards shouted. Weapons were raised. Some aimed at Jay, others at the ceiling. For several breaths, no one understood what had happened. Jay stood between Era and the danger, his body tense. He had one arm around her shoulder, steadying her. He did not realize what he had done until he felt her weight against him. Era did not pull away. Her eyes were wide, not with fear, but with shock. No one had touched her since the day she became queen. It was forbidden. It was unthinkable. Yet here she was, alive, because this human had broken the oldest rule. The guards rushed forward, weapons locked on Jay. Orders were shouted for his arrest and execution. The court demanded justice. A human had touched the queen. Era raised her hand. The room went silent at once. Every guard froze. Every voice stopped. She stepped away from Jay slowly, but she did not show anger. She looked at him carefully, as if seeing him for the first time. He met her gaze. He did not apologize. He did not beg. He only said that he acted to protect her. His voice was steady, and his words were simple. Era turned to her court. She declared that the human would not be harmed. Gasps filled the chamber. She ordered Jay to be taken under her protection until she decided his fate herself. As he was escorted away, Jay felt the weight of countless eyes on him. Fear, anger, and confusion followed him through the halls. He did not know if he would live or die. But he knew one thing. For the first time in her long reign, the alien queen had been touched, and the galaxy would never be the same. Jay was taken through a different path this time. The halls were quieter and narrower, lit by soft white light. 2 elite guards walked beside him, their weapons lowered but ready. No chains were placed on him. This alone told Jay that the queen had truly claimed him under her protection. Still, protection did not mean safety. The news spread fast through the palace. A human had touched the queen and lived. Some said he was cursed. Others said he was already dead and did not know it yet. The court argued in whispers. Old laws were quoted. Ancient punishments were remembered. Era watched all of this from behind her calm face. She sat alone in a private chamber, far from the throne room. The chamber was simple, without guards or servants. This was the only place where she allowed herself to think freely. Her body still remembered the moment of contact. It had not brought weakness. It had brought warmth. No one had ever moved toward her without fear. No one had ever chosen her life over their own rules. That truth disturbed her more than the attack itself. When Jay was brought before her again, the guards stopped far from the center of the room. Era ordered them to leave. They hesitated but obeyed. The doors closed, sealing them inside together. Jay stood still. He did not kneel. He did not step closer. He waited for her to speak. Era asked him why he broke the law. Her voice was calm but sharp. She said the law existed to protect the balance of her people. Touch was forbidden because it created bonds, and bonds led to favoritism and weakness. Jay listened carefully. When he answered, he chose his words with care. He said that where he came from, laws existed to protect life. When a law threatened life, it was broken. He said he did not think of rules when he moved. He only saw danger. Era studied his face. She saw no pride there, no hunger for reward, only honesty. She asked if he feared her now. Many who faced her alone trembled or begged. Jay shook his head. He said she was powerful, but power did not mean cruelty. He said fear made people blind. The words surprised her. No one had spoken to her that way since before she became queen. Era turned away and spoke of her past. She told him how her kind believed rulers must stand apart. Physical distance was taught from childhood. Emotion was trained out of them. When she took the throne, the distance became absolute. Touch was banned. Love was forgotten. She asked Jay if humans were ruled the same way. He said humans tried and failed. He said every time they removed feeling from leadership, disaster followed. He spoke of wars, losses, and survival. He said humans endured because they stayed connected, even when it hurt. Silence filled the room. Outside the chamber, anger grew. Noble leaders gathered. A male commander named Day was the loudest voice. He said the human was a threat. He said the queen had been compromised. He demanded punishment. Another voice spoke against him. A female scholar named Hannah said the humans saved the queen and deserved study, not death. She warned that killing him would anger humanity. Era listened to the reports later, her expression unreadable. She made a choice that shocked everyone. She announced that Jay would remain in the palace as her guest and observer. He would learn their ways. They would learn his. This decision sent waves of anger through the court. Jay was given simple quarters near the inner chambers. He was allowed freedom to walk certain halls, but watched at all times. Servants avoided him. Some looked at him with curiosity. Others with hate. At night, Jay thought of Earth. He thought of how small one human felt inside such power. Still, he did not regret his choice. Era began to observe him closely. She watched how he spoke to guards with respect, how he thanked servants even when they did not answer, how he showed patience where others showed pride. One evening, she asked him to walk with her in a private garden. It was unheard of. Guards waited far away. The stars above were bright. Era asked him what he wanted. Jay answered honestly. He said he wanted peace between their peoples. He said he wanted humans to be seen as more than survivors. He said he wanted her to be seen as more than a symbol. Era stopped walking. She looked at him for a long time. For the first time, she allowed herself to stand closer to someone. Not touching, just close. She said that his presence had already changed things. The court was divided. Enemies watched closely. If she protected him, she would be challenged. Jay said change always carried risk. He said humans learned that the hard way. That night, a secret order was given. Jay would not leave the palace. Not as a prisoner, but as something new. As the stars moved above them, Era realized a truth she had denied for years. The distance that protected her throne had also imprisoned her, and the human had stepped inside that prison without fear. Days passed, but the palace did not return to normal. Every corridor held tension. Every meeting carried hidden meaning. Jay felt it even when no one spoke. He had become a living question that no one knew how to answer. The court watched him closely. Some waited for a mistake. Others waited for proof that the queen had lost control. Guards followed him wherever he went, but their eyes showed uncertainty now, not anger. He trained every morning in a small open hall, using simple movements to keep his body ready. Alien soldiers often stopped to watch. They had never seen a human fight without machines. Era observed these moments through reports and recordings. She did not interrupt. She wanted to understand him fully before the storm broke. The storm came sooner than expected. A meeting of high nobles was called without the queen's approval. Commander Day stood before them, his voice sharp and confident. He said the queen had been weakened by the human. He said her closeness to him violated sacred law. He warned that other empires would sense weakness and strike. Some agreed. Others stayed silent. A decision was made in secret. The human would be removed. That night, Jay was walking back to his quarters when the lights dimmed. The hall grew cold. His instincts warned him seconds before the attack. A hidden blade shot from the wall, aimed at his chest. He moved fast. The blade cut his arm instead, drawing blood. Pain flashed, but he stayed standing. 3 figures stepped from the shadows. They wore no symbols, but their intent was clear. Jay backed away slowly. He had no weapon, only his body and his will. Before the attackers could strike again, the hall doors burst open. Era stood there, her presence freezing the air itself. Guards flooded in behind her. The attackers fell to their knees at once. Era looked at the blood on Jay's arm. Something inside her shifted. She ordered the attackers taken away. Her voice carried power and anger. The guards obeyed without question. The nobles behind the plot were exposed within hours. The court expected punishment for the human, claiming he had caused unrest. Era refused. Instead, she made a declaration that shook the empire. Jay was named her personal advisor on human matters. He would stand beside her during councils. His voice would be heard. Outrage followed. A male general named Ryo openly challenged the decision. He said a human could not understand alien rule. He said tradition mattered more than change. Era answered him in front of all. She said tradition it feared contact was already broken. She said survival demanded growth. Jay felt the weight of many eyes as he stood near her during the next council. He stayed silent unless asked. When he spoke, he used simple words. He spoke of cooperation, not control. He spoke of strength built through trust. Some mocked him, others listened. Female scientist named Lena approached him after the meeting. She said she studied human history. She said humans survived impossible odds again and again. She believed their adaptability was valuable. Her support mattered. Training began soon after. Jay was asked to teach basic human defense methods to a small group of guards. They struggled at first. Human combat relied on balance, timing, and instinct rather than raw power. Slowly, results appeared. Guards moved with more confidence. Injuries decreased. Word spread beyond the palace. Foreign empires took notice. Reports reached Era that fleets were gathering near their borders. They believed the queen had changed. They believed now was the time to test her. Era faced long nights of decision. She stood alone in her chamber, looking at the stars. Jay was called to her side more often. Their conversations grew longer. Still no touch. But the space between them felt smaller. One night, Era asked him a simple question. She asked if humans ever doubted their right to exist among the stars. Jay answered truthfully. He said humans doubted everything, including themselves. But they kept moving forward anyway. The next day, a warning arrived. An enemy fleet had crossed into controlled space. The court panicked. Old strategies were demanded. Isolation was proposed. Era chose a different path. She ordered the fleet to prepare for defense using mixed tactics. Alien technology would combine with human strategy. Jay helped plan movements and timing. He did not command. He advised. As preparations began, an explosion rocked the outer docks. Sabotage. Jay ran toward the danger with no hesitation. He helped pull injured workers to safety. Guards followed him, copying his actions without thinking. Era arrived moments later. She saw humans and aliens working side by side because one human had led without fear. For the first time, she reached out. Her hand rested briefly on Jay's arm. The contact was short, but the effect was deep. Witnesses froze. No punishment followed. No weakness appeared. Instead, calm spread. Era did not pull away in shame. She looked at her people and said nothing. She did not need to. The message was clear. The untouchable queen had chosen connection, and the galaxy was already responding. The enemy fleet did not rush forward. It waited at the edge of the system like a dark cloud. Their ships were larger and more heavily armed. They believed fear would weaken the queen's people before the first shot was fired. Inside the palace, pressure grew. Supplies were counted. Shields were tested again and again. Old commanders argued for strict defense and closed borders. They wanted the queen to return to distance and silence. They said her people needed certainty, not change. Era listened to every voice. She did not interrupt. When they finished, she asked one question. She asked what had saved their empire in past wars. Some answered technology. Some answered numbers. Era said it was unity. She ordered open coordination between fleets, ground forces, and civilian stations. This had never been done fully before. Jay helped design simple signals and timing rules so different units could react together. The system was not perfect, but it was clear and fast. Ryo challenged the plan again. He said humans relied too much on instinct. He warned that instinct failed under pressure. J did not argue. He showed results. During a test drill, human-style movement reduced response time. Crews adapted quickly. Even Ryo could not deny the data. Still, resentment remained. As the days passed, Era and Jay worked closer than ever. They stood side by side during briefings. Their shoulders almost touched. No one spoke of it, but everyone noticed. Late one night, Era called Jay to a quiet observation deck. Stars filled the wide glass wall. She spoke without ceremony. She said she feared failing her people. She said she had been taught that distance meant strength. Now she questioned everything. Jay answered gently. He said leadership was not the absence of fear. It was choosing action despite fear. He said humans learned this through loss. Era asked if humans ever followed leaders who were wrong. He said often. He said humans survived by correcting mistakes together. The next morning, the enemy fleet advanced, space lit with warning signals. Defensive lines formed. Era stood on the command platform, calm and focused. Jay remained at her side, offering short advice when needed. The first clash was violent. Enemy weapons struck hard. Shields shook. Panic rose in some units. Era gave a single order. Adapt. Human-inspired tactics were deployed. Smaller ships moved unpredictably. Decoy signals confused enemy targeting. Ground teams protected stations instead of abandoning them. Losses still came, but the line held. Then disaster struck. A strike team breached the palace defense grid. Explosions rocked the inner levels. Smoke filled halls. Era was rushed toward a safe chamber, but she refused to leave the command flow. Jay ran ahead to clear the path. He led guards through damaged corridors. When enemy soldiers appeared, he fought without hesitation. His movements were fast and direct. Guards followed his lead, copying his balance and timing. They reached the chamber, but a final blast threw them apart. Era fell hard. Pain flashed through her side. Blood darkened her robe. The guards froze. Touch was forbidden. Training screamed at them to keep distance. Jay did not hesitate. He lifted her carefully and pressed his hand against her wound to slow the bleeding. He spoke calmly, telling her to stay awake. He ignored the shocked stares around him. Era looked up at him. Her breathing was weak, but her eyes were clear. She placed her hand over his dot. The contact was open. Public. UNHIDDE. Energy surged through the room, not as force, but as resolve. The guards moved again. Medics rushed forward. Orders flowed. Era was carried to safety, but she did not release his hand until the last moment. The battle continued outside, inspired by what they saw. Units fought harder. Fear loosened its grip. The enemy expected hesitation. They met resistance. Instead, Jay returned to the command platform, stained with blood that was not his own. He continued to advise until the final push. When the enemy fleet began to retreat, a cheer spread through the system. Victory was not total, but it was enough. Era addressed her people later that day. She stood unaided. Her voice was steady despite her wound. She said their strength came from unity, not isolation. She said connection did not weaken them. It completed them. She did not mention laws. She did not need to. As the crowd watched, Era turned to Jay and stood beside him. Closer than any ruler had stood to another, being before. No, one objected. The old world was gone, and something stronger was being born. The days after the battle felt unreal. Fires were put out. Ships returned for repair. Wounded soldiers filled healing halls beside civilians. The palace no longer felt distant from the city around it. People moved freely through spaces once closed to them. Era recovered faster than many expected. Her wound healed, leaving a thin mark that she chose not to hide. She returned to duty before the council asked her to rest. When she walked the halls, people did not step away as far as before. Some bowed. Some simply watched her with new eyes. Jay stayed close, but not as a shadow. He spoke when asked and listened when not. His presence no longer caused fear. It caused questions. The council gathered to decide the future. Old laws were placed on the table. The law of distance stood at the center. Many argued it had protected the empire for generations. Others said it had almost destroyed them. Ryo spoke again, but his tone had changed. He admitted the battle proved new methods had value. He warned that change still carried risk. Lina spoke next. She said fear had already carried risk. She said connection had saved lives. Era listened. When she stood, the room fell silent. She said the law of distance was born from fear of loss. She said loss could not be avoided by isolation. She said strength came from choosing trust with open eyes. She declared the law ended. No cheers followed at first. Only breathing. Then, one by one, council members bowed in acceptance. The decision reached beyond the empire. Messages traveled fast. Some neighbors offered alliance. Others withdrew, uncertain how to face a people no longer bound by old fear. Human leaders received word soon after. They were invited not as guests, but as partners. Jay was asked to return home to deliver the message himself. Era met him in the same garden where they had first walked together. The stars were bright again. She said she would understand if he chose to leave. She said his duty to his people mattered. Jay said duty did not end with distance. He said he could serve both. Era did not answer at once. She stepped closer than ever before and placed her hand on his chest. The contact was calm and steady. She said she would ask him to stay, not as a shield or symbol, but as a companion in rebuilding. Jay accepted. The announcement came days later. Jay was named permanent liaison between humanity and the empire. He stood beside Era during the address. Their hands clearly joined. No punishment followed. Instead, relief spread. Reforms moved quickly. Training blended alien discipline with human adaptability. Councils opened seats to advisors from different worlds. Even civilians were allowed voice through open forums. Some resisted. Most adapted. Months passed. A new threat never came. Trade routes expanded. Shared research cured diseases once thought permanent. Mixed crews explored regions no single race had reached alone. Era changed too. She smiled more. She listened more. She still ruled with strength, but it no longer felt cold. Jay never forgot Earth. He sent messages often. He spoke of progress earned through trust, not conquest. On the anniversary of the battle, a gathering filled the central plaza. Era stood before her people without barriers. She spoke of the past and the future. She told the story plainly. She said once, no one dared to touch the alien queen. She said fear ruled that world. She looked at Jay. She said one man chose action over fear. She said one moment of contact changed everything. The crowd remained silent. Not in fear, but in respect. When Era reached for Jay's hand again. The gesture felt normal. The empire moved forward. Humanity was no longer watched from a distance. And the queen was untouchable no longer, because she no longer needed to be.